Wagner's prisoner of war, a Ukrainian soldier's 46-day nightmare.
Welcome, dear viewers, to an extraordinary tale of a courageous Ukrainian soldier trapped by Wagner's forces. Prepare for a gripping narrative that will leave you in awe. Your undivided attention is requested until the end, as you won't want to miss a single moment of this remarkable story. If you enjoy it, show your support by liking and subscribing. Let's dive into this captivating account together. Wagner mercenaries were within shouting distance when the ambush began. From the high ground, they raked a column of Ukrainian military armor below. An anti-tank rocket punched through Ilya Michalchuk's vehicle, and the 36-year-old recalled, quickly taking stock of his injuries. They were ghastly. Right arm, ribbons of shredded flesh, his left, pocked with shrapnel. Michalchuk stumbled from the burning wreckage, fell to the frozen ground and, using his fractured teeth for leverage, tightened a tourniquet onto each of his mangled arms. Moments later, his attackers drew near, shooting him through the legs. They moved closer. Death, Michalchuk believed, was imminent. I was sure, he recently recalled, they wouldn't capture me. Yet that is exactly what happened. Error. Filer name not specified. Michalchuk spent 6 weeks as a prisoner of the Wagner Group, Russia's contract army, whose savage campaign to capture the eastern city of Bakhmut cost thousands of lives over the winter and spring and left thousands more, including Michalchuk, grievously wounded. The Kremlin's management of the months-long siege and its bid to force the private entity into subservience so enraged Wagner boss Yevgeny Prigozhin that in June he took the extraordinary step of staging a rebellion, marching on Moscow in a stunning, if fleeting, challenge to President Vladimir Putin's authority. Michalchuk was freed in a prisoner exchange in April, having spent 46 days in captivity, during which he lost both arms to amputation by Wagner medics who, he said, neglected to suture his skin after the procedure. In interviews with the Washington Post, he gave a breathtaking account of his captors' alleged barbarism and mind-bending efforts to break the will of Ukrainian soldiers they had taken off the battlefield. Following corrective surgeries in Ukraine, Michalchuk was brought to the United States by a consortium of charitable groups for intensive rehabilitation. He's now in the Washington area at a specialized facility outfitting him with arm prostheses from a company with deep expertise treating American troops who lost limbs while at war in Iraq and Afghanistan. Error. Filer name not specified. Mike Corcoran, the prosthetist heading the effort, marveled at Michalchuk's resilience, saying he's not a shrinking violet. Corcoran's company, Medical Center Orthotics and Prosthetics, has provided services to 19 Ukrainians, and more of them are on the way. It's a costly enterprise. Michalchuk's arms alone are valued at $200,000. The work has been facilitated through donations from the Brothers Brother Foundation and the aid group United Help Ukraine, which pays for housing, food, interpreters, and other non-medical needs. It is vital for amputees to accept their limb loss and focus on rehabilitation. Corcoran said, "Some of the Ukrainians he has helped have struggled," he said, "and it's clear from the look in Michalchuk's eyes that his experience in Wagner captivity has taken a toll." Error. Filenane not specified. In his 20s, Michalchuk, who is from western Ukraine, was drawn to the outdoors, spending downtime with a fishing pole. For work, he did construction, painting, welding, bricklaying, anything with his hands. Before Russia's full-scale invasion last year, Michalchuk previously served small stints in the Ukrainian military under mobilization obligations in 2004 and in a volunteer unit in 2015 to 2017. He was drafted in December, he said, and stationed in the east with the 67th Mechanized Brigade. In late February, the unit drew an important mission outside Bakhmut, then the epicenter of fighting. US intelligence assessments at the time revealed that Ukrainian forces were desperate to hold vital supply routes, including those stretching back to Berkivka. The 67th was ordered to secure part of the village. The brigade Mikhailchuk said, is loathed by Russian forces for its ties to the far-right nationalist group Right Sector, which formed a militia following the Kremlin-backed insurgency in eastern Ukraine in 2014. Right Sector was absorbed into the Ukrainian armed forces last year, but animosity between its members and Russian forces remains. That was top of mind, Mikhailchuk said, when Wagner fighters approached as he lay immobilized. They often kill us right away, he added. Wagner's guns for hire took on the brunt of fighting in and around Bakhmut, where a mix of criminals with little training and skilled operators fought Ukrainian soldiers for control of the city. Russian mercenaries are prevalent in other parts of the world as well, namely Africa and the Middle East, where they have traded muscle for Kremlin influence and access to natural resources. In Mali, Ukraine and elsewhere, they have been accused of numerous war crimes and human rights abuses. Wagner was Moscow's premier private military firm, powered by Prigozhin's long-time relationship with Putin until its failed uprising in June. Prigozhin and his mutineers were then given haven in Belarus, where their arrival has prompted Ukraine and Poland to tighten security. Error. Name not specified. The Wagner Group could not be reached for comment. Representatives for the Russian Defense Ministry did not reply to requests for comment. The Wagner attack on Mikhailchuk's unit was so fast and violent that it had to have been planned, he said. One other, Ukrainian soldier, was captured along with him, he said, with dozens of others either still missing or presumed dead. A spokesperson for the brigade could not provide an official account of the incident or Mikhailchuk's time in captivity. Ukrainian prosecutors have announced war crimes investigations into the Wagner Group. Wagner soldiers slipped off his tourniquets and replaced them with crude rubber tubing, tying them in knots so tight they could not be loosened, he recalled. As Mikhailchuk was moved into Russian-held territory, he pleaded for his captors to amputate his right arm. They refused to help him, he said. 10 hours later, they arrived at a compound where Mikhailchuk would spend the duration of his captivity. He was taken to the basement, which he described as dark and poorly ventilated. Share this article, share. His left arm was salvageable after the rocket attack, he said, but it had turned black from necrosis, starved of blood from the tight rubber tubing. He said his captors made clear there would be no medical attention rendered until he was interrogated, which he said went on for hours. Error. Fillet name not specified. Eventually, Mikhailchuk was sedated, he recalled. When he awoke, both arms were gone above the elbow. The people who performed the procedure bandaged his stumps without first stitching them, he said. The interrogations were unrelenting. When he would lose consciousness, he said, he was injected with an unknown substance to keep him awake so they could continue. His captors did not appear interested in tactical information, such as Ukrainian troop locations or other potentially useful intelligence. There were higher-ranking prisoners whom Wagner could have pressed for such information, Mikhailchuk said. Instead, he surmises that his value to Wagner was merely to be tortured psychologically. His interrogators made light of his amputations, telling him, he said, that he would never fight again, and sadistically asking questions about his fondness for fishing. Wagner's strategy, he said, appeared designed to undermine the Ukrainians' values and to make them question how their countrymen would view them after release from captivity. The Wagner fighters sought to splinter the soldiers' solidarity and, alluding to their experiences fighting in other conflict zones, showed cunning proficiency when it came to manipulation. They tried to make us believe that we couldn't trust each other and that it was a kill or be killed situation, he said. They were just playing with us, the way a cat plays with a mouse, when he catches it before he kills it. Error. Fillet name not specified. Wagner fighters are known to be a volatile mix of serious soldiers and unpredictable convicts drawn from the Russian prison population, Mikhailchuk said. But the Wagner soldiers in the basement of his makeshift prison were professional, he said. He didn't know their names. Many appeared to exhibit greater respect for Ukrainians like him who were captured while fighting, but less for those who had surrendered. They were treated with derision. Some prisoners were physically tortured, he said. but he did not witness it. The harshest abuse came in moments of capture rather than in the basement. Some Ukrainians had their fingers cut off, he said. One man detained alongside him in the basement was set on fire with gasoline before being taken. When they're capturing you, Michalchuk said, that is the fighting time. Michalchuk looked to other captives for help enduring his confinement. They bathed and fed him, he said, with tenderness and care he did not expect. They took shifts speaking with him when the pain was too great to sleep. The basement air was suffocating, he said, and eventually Wagner's soldiers cut a hole in one of the walls to improve circulation. The captives existed in a sort of timelessness, without any sight of the sun or clocks. The first week flew by for Michalchuk because of his disorientation. In the second week, a new prisoner brought in a watch that flashed the date and time. After that, he said, time began to drag. A routine emerged. Late at night, the guards would announce who among the prisoners would be freed early the next morning. Michalchuk's name was called on April 15 to leave in a prisoner swap. When he emerged from underground, his eyes stung and, he said, it was difficult to breathe in the fresh air after so many weeks in a stifling basement. He was taken with other prisoners to an agreed-upon location, a straight road for both Ukrainian and Russian units to have a long line of sight. Several drones from each side hovered above, some just a few feet over their heads. The first thing Michalchuk asked for once back in Ukrainian custody was coffee and a cigarette. Error. Filer name not specified. He does not know what has become of the dozens of soldiers with him when Wagner forces attacked. Not knowing, he said, has been upsetting. The parents of those friends, they all want to talk to me, he said. I don't even know how to talk to them or what to tell them. Michalchuk spent weeks in a hospital recovering, time that included surgery to correct his hasty amputations. There are limited options for prostheses in Ukraine, so he feels fortunate to be receiving such state-of-the-art care, he said. Before heading back home, construction could still be in his future, he said, though maybe this time as a foreman. Error. Filer name not specified. The artificial limbs he's being outfitted with give him far greater dexterity than anything he would have been provided back home. They are equipped, for instance, with bionic sensors that will make it much easier to summon the necessary power from what remains of his arms. At the clinic outside DC, Michalchuk donned a suction cup holding the sensors that translate electrical signals from his biceps and triceps. One sequence of muscle-twitched controls allowing him to bend the elbow. Another sequence commands wrist movement. For the first time in 5 months, Michalchuk picked up an object. The rubber hand grasped a white bottle. He tightened his grip before letting it go. It felt unusual, he said. Error. Filer name not specified. He practiced learning the most important motions right away. How to bring the artificial hand to his face to eat, drink, and, importantly, smoke. One important goal is to tie his own shoes, he said. Other possibilities have become clear, too. In one session, as he and the staff discussed precision touch, his interpreter offered a suggestion. Can you show the finger to the Russians? She asked. Michalchuk smiled.